Hello, I'm Tommy Moore, founder of the Bartitsu Lab, and today we're going to be looking at something a little bit different. Now, as you might know, outside of my Bartitsu, I like to train and explore in lots of other systems, and one of the systems I'm really excited about is 52-hand blocks, or Jailhouse rock boxing. Now, Jailhouse rock boxing, or 52-hand blocks, is predominantly an African-American fighting system founded in American penal institutions, so in prisons. And in those places, people are blending boxing with some degrees of martial arts, self-defense, and accrued self-defense, of things you can only learn by being attacked, mugged, harassed every single day. And all of this goes into a big melting pot, and there are lots of different iterations and interpretations of 52-hand blocks. So there are systems from East Coast America which look markedly different from those in West Coast America. Today I'll be showing you a couple of things that I've picked up from instructors. So I've been looking at Light Burley, David Wells, and also other instructors online, and this is my interpretation of some of the blocks, how they're used, and just to get you excited and get you interested in the art and start your own journey. Reach out to your own instructors, give it a bit of a play. Those of you familiar with Filipino boxing or Filipino martial arts systems, you might find some of the things familiar, as much of the 52-hand blocks is about that. It's about blocking and being evasive and being destructive. So when the punches are coming in, you are breaking those punches predominantly off your elbows. So there's lots of elbow-based defenses. One of the things you should note is that Jailhouse rock boxing in itself doesn't really have, say, a strong syllabus. You know, some people just perfect the first 10 blocks and that's all you need. You'll note that there aren't really 52 blocks. You know, at least 10 times the same block comes up in slightly different variations. So it's a flexible, malleable system. It's not like a Japanese martial art where there are lots and lots of levels and a strict hierarchy of learning. Okay, but some of the things you might know. Jailhouse rock boxing, or 52-hand blocks, is essentially built off a boxing foundation. So it assumes that you already know to some degree how to box, because boxing is the fundamental foundational art of Jailhouse rock. So again, you need to be somewhat familiar with Western boxing, with normal boxing, and it assumes that level of knowledge before you move into the 52-hand blocks. In this video, I'm going to go through some of the types of blocks, how they're used, some of the structure and some of the philosophy of 52 as far as I interpret it, and I really encourage you to go explore with other instructors, try it on, give it a play, and see how it works for you. So some of the things we know about 52-hand blocks. It's a system for defending yourself in prison, and therefore the constraints are thus. Spaces are often very, very limited. You're in a cell, you're in a gangway, you're in a corridor, you're in a crowded cafeteria type environment. Space is premium, and so being able to manipulate space, understand space, move around space is really, really key for you to survive and to you to be able to fight. So situational awareness, very key. Making sure you know where other people are, where you are, where I can escape to, how to manage and manipulate people and where they're standing. It's a huge importance, okay? Second thing is, these fights are very, very rarely fair. They're unlikely to be between two protagonists. It might be me against 3 other motherfuckers that just want to smash me in because they don't like my ginger beard. So again, we're looking at groups, we're looking at multiple opponents, and even if those multiple opponents aren't in the fight, they might still be in the space. So this is really important, to have that multiple opponent mindset. Of a fight, 70% of the people might just be bystanders, people filming stuff, people jeering, people shouting, people being a general nuisance or an inconvenience, but they're there, and you need to understand how to move around them, what to do about them, and essentially how to thrive in that scenario where there could be multiple protagonists, and even if they're not protagonists in the fight, they will still be there physically in a limited space environment. Okay, and thirdly, you've got to understand that there are going to be weapons in play. There are lots and lots and lots of makeshift weapons. Humans are terribly, terribly cunning, and even in the most locked down scenarios, they will find things to beat you with, stab you with, and strangle you with. So again, these aren't going to be fair fights. They're probably not going to be long fights. And if that person starts to lose that fight, there's nothing to stop him pulling out a melted toothbrush to try and stab me with. So in the 52-hand blocks boxing, we need to understand that the fight shouldn't take a very long time. I should neutralize the threat, neutralize you, and fuck off. Okay, so space being premium and understanding space, groups and understanding groups, whether they're combative or non-combative, and weapons being very, very important. As I mentioned, 52-hand blocks relies on you having some degree of boxing knowledge. So again, if you don't have boxing knowledge, I'd really encourage you, before trying this out and playing, get yourself to a boxing gym, learn a bit of boxing. You will need it to understand the system. Okay, but let's move on to some of the things that are uniquely 52. One of the things you might find quite interesting is the use of stance and guard. Now, Light Burley makes a really interesting comment, and he talks about, if I've got a gun and I'm fighting an opponent, I don't hold the gun up here. I point the gun at the opponent. I don't put my guns to God, as I believe he says. So in 52, what you see very commonly is the fists always being on target, the fists pointing towards the opponent, which makes a lot of sense because this is the weapon bit of the fist. Why do I want it up here? Now, there could be, you could say, some defensive reasons why the fists are up here, but there is no real tangible reason why they can't be facing forward. It puts the enemy at threat. It's very efficient. I can blast that shot out without having to move my body in any particular way. So in 52, as opposed to a normal boxing guard, what you often see is a turning like this. Okay, so the fists on the opponent, like so. It puts them on point and at readiness, and I can still really easily use my elbows to defend myself, but my fists are on the target. Okay, so that's an interesting point about 52. Depending on the stylist, and because it's not a rigid system, some people like to box out the Philly shell, like so. So a lead hand being tucked in, shoulder covering the chin, this hand here, I can shoulder roll and hit. But again, a classical 52 would be like so. You also get people that operate out of a standard boxing guard and somewhere in between, but more often than not, you get knuckles on target, which is my favorite approach to it. You tend to get the Philly shell, you get the orthodox boxing. Okay, now 52 is a very fluid art. There is lots of movement, so it's very rare that you'll stay in a locked position. There is lots of tricking and movement and approaches, but I'd say if you want to start with a reasonably static position to get used to it, this guns on target guard here is a really useful one. Again, making sure your elbows are in, you're covering your ribs, you're tucking your chin, your head's down. So in a bare knuckle confrontation, things are either cracking off your forehead here, damaging their hand, my elbows cover my ribs, there's only a very small gap for people to get through, and I'm combatively sound from here. I can land every single shot from boxing, from this guard, with relative ease, keeps myself very safe, and also from a historical pugilist perspective, it encourages me to punch with a vertical fist, which is, as many classical sources would cite, is much better for punching people without a glove using a vertical fist. So again, very interesting point. And lots of people link historical bare knuckle boxing with the evolution of 52 and blocks, in that there was lots and lots of popular bare knuckle boxers who were African American, many of which say might have influenced the approach in 52. So again, something worth thinking about, the links between pugilism, bare knuckle boxing and 52. But in either instance, a guard like so encourages you to punch with a vertical fist, keeps the opponent always in a degree of threat. They're always realizing that a fist in any 1 second could be smashing you in the face or the body. Your elbows in tight, you're a good mobile fighting platform. It's not flamboyant. If I'm in a corridor, if I'm in a cell, this is quite compact. I can fit in, even a chunky bugger like me can fit in to a small space. So again, we've got our guard here. Okay, so now you've got the principles of the guard. The movement is much like any other boxing, and there's a huge amount of reviews. Light Burley is a master of movement, so really do check him out. He's got lots of different footwork drills. My camera sophistication isn't there yet, so I'm not going to move too much into the footwork. Suffice to say, go look at the footwork over there. There's lots of interesting things, but in terms of upper body movement, guard like so, very, very useful. And bear in mind the psychology now, we're thinking small spaces, experienced opponents, weapons, groups, and we have no gloves. These are key fundamental principles when looking at 52. So I'll now move into some of the techniques